Play.
Good afternoon in Central European time. Good morning if you're somewhere stateside or in the Americas elsewhere. And very much good evening or good night if you are in Asia. If you're in Australia or anywhere nearby, please go to bed. Or maybe you just can't sleep and you thought you'd tune into Talking Tennis to help alleviate your nocturnal issues. Damien, the beard is getting longer. I don't know if that's anything to do with the winter that is incoming here in Europe or any other reason, or just, you're too busy engrossed in the tennis to get round to shaving the beard.
I thought you were going to say the beat is getting longer, as in like your good morning, good evening, good night, Australians, Americans.
Yeah, that was an elongated version, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll do it soon, but not now yet. Not yet.
Okay, cool. Let's get straight to it because time is of the essence for me because I'm catching a plane very, very soon. Coco Gauff and Muchova, Karolina Muchova, will contest the final in Beijing. Somebody's looking at me.
Yes, here because of tennis.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
you like tennis?
I play tennis very well.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
Very well.
Very well, yeah.
Well, this is called Talking Tennis, and we are a YouTube channel, podcast, and website. We cover professional tennis and a little bit of amateur stuff too.
Good.
Yeah.
We must
Go. See you. Anyway, Karolina Muchova, Coco Gauff will contest the final in Beijing. I think I've got that right. At sometime tomorrow morning, I guess, Central European time. After wins today over Paolo Badosa in 3 sets, and in the case of Muchova, straight sets win over Qin Wenzheng. Were you surprised by either of those 2 results, Damien?
There's no surprises at this stage of the event. I mean, literally both matches were just completely random, and whoever delivers on the day and stuff. It's great that Muchova will get to have that chance, at actually picking up a title for the first time since 5 years. I mean, how is this even possible? I really don't get that. And I mean Coco has had some brutal...
She's probably played 2 years of tennis in that time, though, right?
That's true. I mean, she definitely had some moments when she was just like out for almost the entire year. But, still, I would say that she played enough for a title to appear at some point. Of course, she played 4 finals since or something like that. One of them a Grand Slam, one of them at the WTA 1000 level. 250 or something like that this year, right? So yeah, I mean, definitely there were some opportunities, and tomorrow is going to be as good a chance as she can get. Although she obviously lost to Coco in her previous WTA 1000 final and also in a US Open semi-final, so not like it's going to be easy.
Yeah, what is the head-to-head between them? Do you know off the top of your head?
Not really. I haven't checked that. I just know these 2 matches that. I just know these 2 matches that she lost to Coco, which probably, I don't think they've played 10 times.
That is it.
I think it's most of their
those 2. Just those 2. And in fact, my thoughts ahead of this are kind of influenced by the head-to-head. And I don't know, I just feel as though Muchova might run into some trouble or might run out of steam, or the fact that she's only won 1 title might come into play. Experience of winning big things can only help Coco, I think, albeit that everything else probably leans towards Muchova.
Yeah, I think it's pretty important to remember that these 2 wins happened in literally 4 weeks, and that was some of the best weeks of Coco's career. So I don't really know if the head-to-head matters all that much. Is Gauff a little less sort of vulnerable to Muchova's game than a power hitter would be, than someone like Sabalenka is, and everybody else? Probably. But yeah, I mean, maybe the head-to-head isn't that much of an advantage, given that, it happened during that time when Coco was beating literally anybody. And we all know that she's not exactly like that since then. But yeah, certainly some nerves could be a thing. Muchova has had a few finals, as I mentioned, lost them. 5 years is a very long time, She might kind of want that really good stamp on her record and everything. I mean, pretty much secure the Australian Open seeding, and yeah, there's basically lots to win for Muchova here. Perhaps even more. I mean, there's probably more at stake for her than for Gauff.
Yeah, I think you're right. But possibly I've talked myself into leaning towards Coco and tipping her to win, and I guess I'll go for 3 sets. Where are we at with the race? Coco is pretty much, I think, a shoe-in. She can probably pack her bags for Riyadh. I'm going to share this on the screen right now. Where we've got basically one spot, I think, available. I think that you and Vance were discussing it earlier. Realistically, if we assume that, along with obviously already qualified Sabalenka and Swiatek, that let's just go with Rybakina is going to play for now. Rybakina, Paolini, Pegula, and Gauff. It feels like they're safe, right?
Yeah, I think anyone with 4K points is pretty much safe. Even if someone very unexpected wins Wuhan, then yeah, I mean, it would have to be like a Navarro-Zheng final, for example, to really mix things up, and potentially then maybe someone could catch Coco. But actually, is it the updated race? No, I guess it's pre-Beijing
Probably
that you're
not.
looking
It's
at.
pre-Beijing, so
Yeah,
Coco
it's
is.
pre-Beijing, so Coco is definitely safe by now. Yeah, so I don't think anything can happen to her. Navarro, of course, is in a bit of like a tough spot right now, but then again, the fact that Badosa and Zheng, they both lost today, that really helps her out. She's still going to enter Wuhan and the rest of the season as the number 7. And yeah, we have to mention that the third player already qualified, of course, is Barbora Krejcikova.
Yep.
So that really makes things a little more tricky for some of these players, like right lower down the list. I think that it's basically like if Badosa won today, she's suddenly still in. If Zheng won
Yeah.
today, I mean, she's higher than Navarro, right? But yeah, I mean, the way it is right now, it's just kind of tough to see anyone else but Navarro or Zheng qualifying for that 7th spot. However, there's also always the possibility of someone unexpected winning Wuhan. It's not going to be like anybody. Like it has to be someone who has a lot of points already, like Kasatkina, Badosa, or whatever. But I mean, Navarro and Zheng definitely are the 2 favorites. And as you said, Rybakina, maybe even Swiatek, they are kind of in doubt. So it
Yeah,
suddenly
true.
would become a lot more interesting if they withdrew. But for now, I think we only can really, realistically, you can just say we have one spot left, and Navarro and Zheng are like the prime favorites to take it, bearing a very random Wuhan champion.
I mean, you say it might become more interesting if one of those two were to drop out with Rybakina and Swiatek, but actually, rather than it be a shootout between Navarro and Zheng, it would probably just mean that both end up going to Riyadh if one of those two, if both Rybakina and Swiatek did drop out, then suddenly Kasatkina, Ostapenko, Kalinskaya, Kostuk, and a bunch of others might fancy their chances if they had a good run.
Yeah, that's fair.
But
That's fair.
anyway,
If there's only one withdrawal, then yeah, Navarro and Zheng simply probably would get it. So yeah, like bearing a very not a very random, because Kasatkina would not be a very random Wuhan champion, or Badosa wouldn't be a very random Wuhan champion. But bearing a Wuhan champion from outside the top 10, I don't think there's going to be anything else happening here than a Navarro Zheng race for the number 7 spot.
Okay, let's move over to Shanghai and look at some of the ATP results today. I didn't see a single ball, but I saw that Novak won 7-6, 7-6 over Mickelson in a very, very tight second set tiebreak. It was 11-9. I was actually watching it on Google Scores, just seeing it tick over. And I saw that there was a set point or two the way of Mickelson, including one on his serve. I don't know, but Mickelson, I've got some doubts about his nerve, and it's more just based on what I'm seeing as him as a person. He's quite a kind of honest, he's not a guy who'd be any good at poker. He's just he's a real guy, and he has real emotions. And when it was really tight in that second set tiebreak, although I didn't see a ball, I just thought, oh, Novak in a tiebreak plus the Mickelson factor. I don't know if I'm making any sense with Mickelson at all, but he's not someone who would strike me as being super cool under pressure. Certainly not what I see on the outside, anyway.
I mean, sure, yeah, he's very expressive. I think that can be misleading as well. Like some people are just introverted, some are extroverted, I guess. But yeah, I mean, of course, it was a pretty good chance for him. Novak has barely played this season as a whole, I suppose, or especially recently. Of course, the Olympics were fantastic, and he completed tennis and everything, but we don't really know where his motivation will be. He fought hard today. He needed to, because his level was, a little rusty. But yeah, I mean, obviously, it's still going to be like, mostly on him in the next few rounds. and we don't really know how he reacts to someone who is going to push him like even further than Mikkelsen. For what it's worth, I think Mikkelsen is a very good opponent to kind of get you into the event, if you may, because he's solid, he's gonna make you play, but he's not exactly gonna like blast you off the court. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely space for Novak to produce a bit of a run out of this. But whether he will do it or not after today's match, I think I'm definitely not qualified to say, because
Sure.
yeah, I just have no idea where his motivation is at the moment. But actually, for the
No.
ATP race, it's really important that he goes over Alex de Minaur, because if Alex de Minaur doesn't play until the end of the year, and we know that Novak won't play until ATP finals, if he even plays the ATP finals,
He's not going to play
that
Paris
might
Bercy?
actually be enough.
He's not going to play Paris Bercy?
Novak? I mean, Novak said
Yeah.
that he only wants to play Shanghai and maybe the ATP finals.
Okay. Well, of course, there's no Davis Cup for them this year, but yeah, okay, fair enough. There are a couple of matches, of course, that are happening right now in the shape of Zverev and Bellucci. Zverev they're on serve at the moment, albeit that Zverev has 2 break points, and we've got Taylor Fritz and at Manny as well. I'm wondering where Taylor Fritz is in the race. I'm thinking he's probably quite safe, but we'll have a look at that shortly. And Zverev has just broken, but I've digressed because I want to get into Alcaraz against Sheng, which is a match that you saw earlier. No hangover for Alcaraz after his heroics in Beijing, right?
Yeah, and just to be clear, I mean, yesterday there were some articles which are like Djokovic surprises everyone with the fact that he is actually on the list for Bercy. But the thing is that list is automatic. Like, lists for mandatory events are just automatic.
Okay.
So you don't actually sign up for these. You just get signed up. I mean, obviously, before he withdraws, officially, we cannot actually say he won't play. However, that's what he stated earlier. That he probably wants, that just probably Shanghai and maybe the ATP finals. But yeah, speaking of Alcaraz, I mean, yeah, he just came out, started blasting his forehand the way he was in Beijing with that super aggressive attitude. Shang, on the other hand, like really couldn't find anything in terms of his 3 points on serve or like the aggressive game that was there for him in Chengdu. And well, the way he adapted to these rapid conditions there, it just wasn't there here in Shanghai. Whereas Alcaraz still had the power to like, blast through anything. And yeah, it really wasn't a match. I mean, it was still entertaining. There were a couple of highlight reel shots, highlight reel rallies as well.
Yeah.
It's not like only Alcaraz contributed. I think Jerry also did. But especially, of course, we will remember the behind the back shot. But all in all, yeah, it was just sort of a good display of tennis from Alcaraz, from Shang to an extent. Just couldn't really convert any aggressive positions. And that's why it ended up being so lopsided. But yeah, no hangover whatsoever.
Yeah, do check out that behind the back shot. When I saw it, and I knew it was sort of, I saw a tweet suggesting it was coming, but it was very early on in the rally that I saw. I think he's running down a lob. I then thought, okay, Alcaraz needs to win this point, or even better, Alcaraz wins with a winner. As it turned out, I think it was an unforced error from Shang, so we got half of the 2. But it does change the dynamic. When you see a hot shot like that, if you don't end up winning the point, it shouldn't, but it does take something away from it, right? In terms of what we value as fans.
Oh yeah, I mean, certainly. Like if someone hits a tweener on the Challenger Tour and then the opponent just puts it away, I'm not clipping that, because there's no point in that. Like, but if he wins a tweener and then 2 shots later he manages to pass the guy again or something
That's
like
right.
that, then of course, yeah, it makes a great deal of difference actually. Maybe in the case of Alcaraz here, it maybe wouldn't, because the rally kept going. So like if Jerry wins it with a ridiculous shot, or I don't know, just a winner of any sorts, it still becomes a thing. But especially when it's like, literally the next shot is like a put away or something like that, then especially it matters a great deal, yes.
Okay. Elsewhere, we had a straight sets win for Yannick Sinner with the loss of just 5 games of Atado Daniel. So are him and Alcaraz in separate halves in Shanghai?
No, they're in the same half. They were supposed to play yesterday originally, but they got the Saturday start due to their Beijing final. But they are in the same half.
So we've got Djokovic and Zverev in one half and Sinner and Alcaraz in the other. So a potential semi-final rematch for those 2. Jakub Mensik winning in 3 sets against Andrei Rublev. 6 to 12 months ago, we might have been tempted to put this in sort of surprise territory. But I guess nowadays, with the way the trajectories of both players is going, the 3-set win almost feels normal, right?
He beat him in Doha already. I don't think he played quite as well today. Didn't really need to. But yeah, still kind of the same issues. Like someone who can match Rublev's pace, plus at the same time is already a more complete player, more versatile player. It's going to be tricky for Andre, especially right now that he's kind of lost that, I don't know, aura of invincibility against lower ranked opponents, which he used to have in 2020, 2021, 22, 23. It's just this year really when it disappeared, more or less around that Menchik loss, and maybe even specifically maybe after the Dubai defaults. I know some people kind of look at that as a turning point for Rublev, not in a good way, of course. And yeah, I mean, for Menchik, I think sometimes we are sleeping on him a bit in the last few months because obviously the results aren't coming, but still should be very much included in the conversation for the best youngsters on the planet, and one of those who probably will be contending for even titles like this in the future. So it's a good win for him, needless to say, even though he probably could have taken the opening set as well. But in the end, of course, gets it done from 0-2 in the third, which was a bit of a meltdown as well for Rublev.
Okay. I mean, how big are you prepared to go right now on Menchik?
Let's say top 10 in the future.
Okay. That's
he should have a higher floor than some of the other guys, like Fils, Shelton. You know, if you Fonseca, if you compare him to all of these guys, like they are
Runa as
probably
well.
going to be a bit more streaky. Who?
Yeah, Runa as well. I mean, Runa is
Rune,
turning
yeah,
out
Rune,
this way.
I guess Shelton is even older than Rune, so we can include them in this. But yeah, all of these should be a little less streaky than all of these. Should be a little more complete, maybe even. Just the fact that, you know, for his height, he moves so well, so he's got like both the weapons and the quick footwork and everything. I believe that he should be a little more, stable at the top.
Yeah, and good morning to Ghosty, who's just joined the chat. There were wins for Popperin over Kecmanovic in straight sets. Shevchenko won 2 tight sets over Sorundolo. Lehetska beating Kwame Munar, and Watanuki saw off. I was going to say friend of the show, not even close to friend of the show, but friend of Vanch's, Brandon Nakashima. Let's just hone in on that Watanuki Nakashima result, because I think you saw the latter stages of this match. Again, are we? That is a little surprise, isn't it? Or maybe Nakashima's just running out of steam at the wrong time of year for him.
Neither, in my opinion. I mean, Nakashima is just losing to players like this pretty regularly, like guys who just come out, redline, don't give him any time to breathe. You know, it's also a battle, and we are talking about this with Vanch. It's also a battle of like temperaments, where Watanuki's playstyle is just high risk, high reward, and basically, you know, don't care what happens. I have to blast the ball. I have to take time away. Whereas Nakashima is the opposite of that. Like he is very focused on percentages. And sometimes when Brandon just comes up against guys like this, like Menchik this year twice, for example, beat him in more aggressive performances than the ones against Rublev, Leandro Ridin, Otinye Louvain-la-Neuve, and many others. He just doesn't really have that ability to disrupt the opponent. Coleman Wong even recently beat him in Hangzhou. I think Coleman Wong is pretty similar to Watanuki playstyle-wise. I think last year I was even posing this question. So, like, if people were looking at Watanuki, you know, a few years back, is Coleman Wong pretty much the same? Cilic in Hangzhou, Jin, to me is different because it's Cilic. Like it's you know, it's a different quality of opposition. But yeah, I mean, in a way, in a nutshell, it is also a similar loss. Yeah, he's just playing down the middle. No, I mean, Coleman Wong, he almost beat him in Hangzhou. Coleman Wong had match points to beat Nakashima in Hangzhou. That's what I'm saying. And to me, Coleman Wong, Yusuke Watanuki, it's a pretty similar game, pretty similar issues for Brandon as well. And in that sense, it's not surprising at all. I mean, Watanuki, it's only his second best ever win ranking-wise, which is pretty shocking because we remember all of these amazing matches that he had against Nori, Fritz, Hurkacz, Tiafoe, and, you know, whoever else. But he just wasn't getting these wins. Even though he was pushing them, pushing these players, pushing for these wins, he wasn't getting them. Maybe gets another shot against Fritz in the next round, depending on whether Taylor will beat Atman.
I want people in the live chat to let us know what are some of your matches of the year. It can be on the ATP or WTA side, and we'll try and address some of those thoughts at the end. Some of your favorites. Obviously, we had an epic final in Beijing last week or earlier this week between Sinner and Alcaraz. And of course, we also had a pretty special match between Sabalenka and Muchova. Maybe they're fresh on your mind, but maybe you can go back as far as the United Cup in January and pick out a gem that maybe we hadn't even thought of. So please do that in the live chat. Meanwhile, I want us to go to the ATP race. We've already touched on the WTA race. I mentioned Taylor Fritz. You mentioned the 4,000 mark, which I'm guessing is fairly relevant for both the ATP side as well. And Taylor Fritz is pretty much there. Yannick, of course, and Carlos are already assured their places. I think Zverev is he assured? If not, if it isn't the case, then it doesn't say so on here. But
I think he is.
He must be with that sort of haul.
Yeah, but they are
Memphis
always
might
pretty
not be.
late to announce that. Like sometimes, Alcaraz was qualified for a long time before they actually announced it. So, but yeah, I mean, obviously they are. The top 4 is definitely in, and I would even say that the top 7 is definitely in.
Yeah. Well, Casper and Andre was part of the conversation today. Novak right now, and this looks like it's live because it's including the win over Mickelson. Yeah. And I can see that Novak is now just leapfrogged De Minaur. De Minaur is not playing Shanghai, am I right?
Yeah, he's not. That's why you don't have him in the, you don't have his result there.
Right. And is he coming back anytime soon?
Well, it's a possibility he won't play at all until the end of the year at this stage. We don't really know when he's going to be back. And in fact, like he still might make Turin without playing any matches if Novak doesn't play. But what happened
Novak
today, and what's pretty important, because like if Novak really was going to finish his season in Shanghai, if he was going to call it quits after this event, then today he secured the number 8 spot. So if he wants to play the ATP finals, he likely will be able to, unless there's going to be like a huge Paris run for someone lower down the list, or I don't know, we'll see. But yeah, the thing is that below the top 8 here, all of the players are like very vulnerable at the moment. So yeah, I'm not really sure. I just think that it's going to be a bit of a mess in that sense, especially if Novak pulls out. Because yeah, if Novak makes a big run here, obviously he might as well just kind of close the discussion.
Yeah, indeed. Dimitrov is a shout though, right?
Well, Dimitrov is very close. Tsitsipas is relatively close. Tommy Paul is relatively close. But neither of these guys really scream at you like, I'm going to go big this time. I'm going to go big in the next month and claim it for myself. They don't really. So Tiafoe is a little further back. Hurkacz isn't going to play probably until the end of the season, or maybe at least for a couple of weeks. So he probably took himself out of the race as well. Yeah, I mean, obviously there can be an somewhat unexpected, at least Paris champion to claim it. 500s are coming as well. The Basel Vienna week is very stacked, and some of the top guys won't be there, like Alcaraz or Sinner. So there is space for someone to pull off a magnificent run and get there, like Jack Sock, but it will need to be really something special.
Indeed. I think last year we were sort of wondering which player or players who were there in Turin just under a year ago who might not be there a year later. And I think Rublev was fairly high up our list, although it does look like he's, certainly likely to be there with his current haul. And it's Stefanos Tsitsipas. Who else has missed out compared to last year? Tsitsipas?
To be honest with you, I think that's the only name, right? I mean, Rune as well, yeah.
Oh, Tsitsipas and Rune, yeah, right. So those are the two sort of people to drop out, and I'm guessing that they will be replaced by Fritz and Ruud, maybe, who've obviously been there before. But I'm thinking that right now, if it's the top 8 as we see it, I think those two will have returned to Turin like they were there in 2022.
Yeah, Fritz definitely wasn't there last year, right? But was Ruud there? I guess he wasn't. Yeah, so Fritz and Ruud, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I am about to board my flight. So what I'd like you to do, Damien, is see out the show just by talking for 2 to 10 minutes, however long you feel, answering some of those matches of the year, and just throw in as many sort of thoughts as you can so I can listen later, and that'll help me 6 weeks from now when we do decide which matches we're going to plump for. Is that okay?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly have maybe 5 in my head tops for either tour, and a lot of them have already been mentioned. So, but yeah, I'm just gonna sort of look at your suggestions, guys. Obviously, Sabalenka Świątek is in the Madrid final. Jean says that's the best match of the season to me on the women's side. I will be going very hard after this one. and trying to make sure that it tops the list. When it comes to Osaka Iga, Roland Garros, again, that's a guaranteed top 5 in my book. Evans Khachanov, it's fine to mention that in the conversation, but I have some problems with this one, to be honest. Mostly the thing that like no one actually watched the first 4 sets. Let's be honest, no one did watch that. The only people who watched that just tuned in like from late in the 5th. But the story was great. It was a real marathon. I think it deserves a mention. I think we will definitely cover it in the discussion. I would be surprised if it makes the top 5. However, if it will, it's probably because of the shortage of amazing best of 5 matches that we got this season. Obviously, Carlos, Yannick, Beijing, that's going to be in the top 5 as well. There's no real discussion there. Silk, Kust, Estoril. Well, I mean, the Estoril match was probably better quality, even though it was not as close as than the Porto one. And we do have files actually from Silk Kust 1.0, from Silk Kust 2.0, which was in Porto, Ghosty. We don't have the footage because we didn't record it. That was, well, the quality there was kind of poor. So, no. I believe there is actually going to be a Sasha Zverev match in the top 5, or at least it's going to be in the conversation. That's going to be one of these ATP 500 Fields titles that's ATP 500 titles that Fields got. So either the Hamburg final against Zverev or the Tokyo final against Humbert. I think that should be on the list. When it comes to the Tokyo final, the problem is that the entire story of Arthur claiming the title was much stronger than that actual match itself. Like the match was great, but what would be amazing is Fields beating Rune, Shelton, and Zverev. Rune, Shelton, and Humbert. That's the amazing story. That's the amazing match, like a combination of these 3. And I don't think we can do it like this. So I think we will probably put on Zverev Fields on the Hamburg, the Hamburg final eventually on the list. Becoming mainstream now. I mean, I'm not becoming mainstream, guys. Making one small guest appearance is really not changing my life in a minute. However, of course, it's good. Anyway, Fields ran through a bunch of dudes in Tokyo. True, yeah, and we cannot include the entire run, unfortunately. But if we were to combine these 3 matches, Humbert, Shelton, Rune, that would be one of the matches of the year for me. Definitely, I would say Shang against Mute. That's another one that I would love to push for. Madrid, just 4 hours of incredible drama, shot making, match point saving from Mute until Jerry eventually won with 20 crazy forehands in the final tiebreak. That's definitely one that I will be going for. I know that there will be people who will say, okay, this is an irrelevant match because it's an early round of an ATP 1000. Who cares? At the time, a lot of people cared. I mentioned Zverev Fields already. I think it's going to be the one that is going to be chosen over Fields Humbert eventually. And of the men's side, I'm kind of out of answers for the moment, I think. Well, I think the Alcaraz Sinner Roland Garros semi or the Alcaraz Zverev Roland Garros final will probably get a mention too. They weren't astonishing matches, maybe, but they were important 5-setters that I feel like one of them could make the list. Was there something in Australia? Sure, there were okay matches here or there, but probably nothing that will really become, a surefire top 5. Seibovic Jari, the atmosphere was good, but yeah, I don't think we can really put it in the top 5. And on the women's, I think that you guys already mentioned Osaka Świątek. You guys already mentioned Sabalenka Świątek, of course. There's also one more important match, which is Paulini Vekic. That's surely making the top 5 Wimbledon semis. And also another sure thing in the top 5 is going to be Rybakina Blinkova in Australia and that 20-20 tiebreak. And I know this kind of has the similar issue as with Evans Khachanov, but actually it kind of doesn't, because I feel like more people started watching that earlier because it was just, Rybakina, who was one of the favorites for the title, about to go out. There's more story there to it rather than Evo Khachanov, I think. So I believe these four women's matches I just mentioned, they will surely be in the top 5. And the 5th spot is just the 5th spot is out in the open. It's up for grabs. And I have no clue yet who is going to do it. And yeah, when it comes to the men, John says that there are only 2 definites on the women's side. I mean, Paulini Vekic is a definite too. I can understand if you don't count Rybakina Blinkova as a definite, but the other 3, I think, surely are in the top 5. And when it comes to the men's, I think that obviously Beijing final is definitely happening. Fields against one of these, one of these ATP 500 finals for Fields will surely make it on as well. I know that there will be people pushing for the Olympic final. I will probably not be able to hold them off because I really don't think it was that good. I think it's overrated. But I imagine that people will be trying to get it on the top 5 list, and maybe I will have to agree at some point. Probably I will. Maybe I will do a trade with something, right? Maybe I will kind of say, okay, so this goes on, but actually I also want that. I know that myself, I really want Shank Mute on the list. That's for sure. 3 hours, 59 minutes there. What else was... yeah, and Brenda mentioned Carlos Zverev, Roland Garros final. I think Carlos Sinner might be the more... I think it might be the better pick. Carlos Zverev, Roland Garros final. Carlos Zverev, Roland Garros final. I think Carlos against Yannick, Roland Garros semi might be better. But yeah, men's definites, I mean, there aren't that many. I think maybe the only definite is the Beijing final, to be honest. And I think we will definitely also put... I mean, yeah, of course it is in the definites. It's maybe the only one, really. And I think we'll definitely also put on one of the FIS ATP 500 finals. But otherwise, it's a little up for grabs to me. Definitely, yeah, as I said, I will be pushing for that Shank Mute match. Some people will definitely want the Djokovic Alcaraz one at the Olympics. And Ghosty Struff, Fritz, I mean, yeah, it's a good story, but it's just a story. It's not really a match that was all that entertaining, or at least not top 5 worthy, right? I mean, sure, it's a great story, definitely, but we can't really put empty ones like that, I think. Not in the top 5, at least, if we are doing a top 30, then sure. Which one will I lean towards? I already said that the Hamburg final will probably end up getting picked because on its own, it's a better match than the Tokyo one. On its own, because if we could include the entire run of fields in Tokyo, it would be that. Oh, Kobori Runa, that's actually a strong call. I think that might be top 10-ish. I don't know if top 5, but it's a good one. I like that one. That could be in the conversation, yes. I actually missed most of that, but if we find someone on the Talking Tennis team who is going to advocate for it, I certainly wouldn't mind. I watched the tiebreak later on and stuff, but I actually missed that. Damon John matches didn't quite live up to expectations. Yeah, I just said that like the Porto one was probably worse in quality, but there was a lot of drama, so maybe it was better in the end than the Estoril one. But yeah, I mean, we couldn't really put it on the top 5. We could put it on the top 5 of Talking Tennis matches of the year, because that's probably, well, if not the only 2, then one of the 3 or 4. So definitely. Yes, Ghosty, you got my approval for the Kobori Runa pick. I'll try to remember that by the time we're doing the list. Yeah, no clue if we can really fit it into the top 5, but we can try. We can see what we can do. But yeah, otherwise, I don't know. Oh, I know. I just came up with one with the US Open, right? Is Shelton Tiafoe top 5 worthy? Maybe again, like Kobori Runa. It deserves a mention, and then we'll see what we can do with that. So I think that's more or less it, what we have right now. I mean, we've got a few months still to go on. I know that on lists like this, generally matches that happen later in the season tend to be a bit higher because you remember them better simply, and there's recency bias. So if there's something extremely good at the ATP finals or at the Davis Cup finals, I think we'll definitely get a high chance at making the top 5. And yeah, for now, I think these are the definites. Yeah. On the women's, we've got like 4 out of 5 spots, in my opinion, booked. It would have to be something special to really get this in. Korda Evo? No. That's a bit too out there for me, to be honest. I mean, you might as well put Eubanks Evo at that stage. Like that's kind of where we're going. And yeah, Shelton Tiafoe, I think, should get a mention in the discussion. Maybe make the top 5 because, as I said, we had a bit of a shortage of quality matches in the best of 5 play, especially this year, I would say. But yeah, obviously, I mean, it will also require us to kind of go back through the draws, and maybe we are forgetting something completely. Middle seat is the worst. Yeah, absolutely. I think window is by far the best, because when someone wants to pee, they don't have to go through you. But I will take aisle. Like if I can secure aisle and kind of have a chance. Oh, if I always get the aisle but never the window and never the middle, I would go for something like that. If there was an option like this, like for the rest of your life, you can take the aisle seat, but you will never get window or you will never get middle. I would go for it. Window, obviously, I would go for it, and middle is just a joke, absolutely. But it is what it is, especially if you want to fly cheaper airlines. Yeah, I think with that we might as well end the show here. As I said, 3, maybe even 4 definites on the women's. It's more flexible on the men's, but I think one of the fields matches will make it in, and also Alcaraz Sinner in Beijing. It's 100% in. Isle is not too bad. However, there is this one. I think it's a Ryanair stewardess who has flown with me like 3 or 4 times by now. And the thing about her is, I mean, she's just kind of wide, and she basically cannot make it through the actual plane without like bumping into you. And it's so irritating when she does it 20th time on the flight. And I kind of have some PTSD with the aisle now. But yeah, window definitely the best. It's easier to choose when there are 5 epics and the rest trash than 2 greats and a bunch of maybes. Yeah, and that's why that I wouldn't say the rest are trash, but it's actually kind of easy on the WTA right now for me, because there are 4 that stand out a lot. Whereas on the men's, we've got like 2, let's say, definites, and then rest. I mean, actually, I tried to use an expression that would be, politically correct. I think this is politically correct, right? Wide. It's fine. Your muscles are so big. Yeah, that's kind of true as well. Like if you have, huge shoulders, or if you have actually long legs. I don't even have long legs, or at least, not very long legs. But it really helps if you can just put out that right leg a little bit into the aisle, and somehow survive. But of course, I mean, we're all hoping for window, and we're all hoping that people next to us just won't be flying, that the seats won't be taken. But how often does that happen? Pretty much never. Anyway, thank you guys for this impromptu show, and yeah, we'll see you guys some other time. And of course, the top 5 lists, your suggestions as well. We're gonna come back to that when the season is over, and when we decide which matches to kind of focus on during the December period and the off season, which doesn't even happen. Open the window with a hammer or what? I guess you can, but you probably won't fly if you try. Anyway, once again, thank you, and we'll see you guys like relatively soon. Yeah, bye.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.